say, I'm trying to look through the eyes of love. So the Heart Lady is really trying to be in with heart. And I want to thank you, Stacy, for all of the wonderful things that you said. The Platinum Speakers Network means a lot to me, and it has been a part of me following my heart. One of the things that comes up for me, and if we could turn that volume down because I'm hearing an echo of myself, is that the heart starts in the very beginning. And I think about, where did I become so passionate about this whole thing of hearts and love? One of our platinum speakers, my colleagues and speakers, Vince Toran, who actually is coming up a couple of times later, told me, he said, you know what, Evelyn, you came into this world expecting it to be a love fest, and you've been disappointed ever since. And I would say, yes, even as a child, I was told, oh, she's so tender-hearted. Oh, you wear your heart on your sleeves. But you know what? There came a time in life when I realized why it was that I had such a compassion about myself. And I heard Wade say something to the extent that you want to become better and not bitter. And you know, when you have an open heart and you give and you want people to feel that sense of love and you don't get it back, sometimes it can also make you bitter. And my continuous prayer is, Lord, help me to be better and not bitter. This whole process of working with heart, for many of you who may not know, that my passion is working with young people, with children, and especially those whose lives have been impacted by the foster care system. I started a nonprofit organization in 1992. It's called For a Child's Heart. And the story came about as a result of me working with my younger foster son. And I was combing his hair, and I was actually going to be giving him a haircut. And he looked at me and he said, when you touch me like that, it makes my heart warm. The tears just started to roll down my face, and I know he was looking at me like, what's wrong with this lady? But he didn't know that what he had really done was help me to define what my role and purpose was in life. You know, sometimes people ask, well, what can you do this? What skill do you have? And it's like, I talk, I counsel people, but I just felt like that was a normal part of what it is that I did every day. But when he said that, it made me realize it wasn't the first time he had gotten his hair cut. It wasn't the first time he'd been even in a foster home. But there was something different about what I did and the way I did. And I knew it wasn't anything that came from knowledge. It came from my heart. As I look back through my development as a child, I was an only child for 11 years. And I always wanted my mother to have more children. And she said, that's not happening here. And then when she and my father split up, it was like, okay, that's not happening here. Well, I always had this vision that when I grew up, I was going to have this huge family. I wanted to have biological children, I wanted to have adopted children, and anybody else that would come along. And people who know me know that even now, if I meet you, if we really connect, you've already been adopted into my family. And so when my sister was born, it was like, I was 11 years old. And it was like, okay, but she wasn't really like a little puber, she was like my baby. Little did I know that she would be the baby in my life, because years down the line, people always was telling my mother, you need to watch her, because she's either going to have a whole house full of kids, or she probably won't have any, because I love children. So let me tell you how following my heart brought me from there to where I am now. I love children. I thought when I was younger that I wanted to be a pediatrician. And it's like, I love babies, I want to help them, I can help them heal, so that's fine. My first job in high school, I did not want to do fast food, and there were things that I just didn't want to do, and people said, well, who do you think you are? You can't do what other people are doing. But I knew what I wanted to do. My first job was in a children's center. So from my junior year in high school through my senior year, I worked in a children's center. Loved it, worked from 2 to 6. And it was like, okay, I like this. One of the children's parents worked in a doctor's office, a pediatrician. And she said, you know what, you love these kids so much, what are you going to do when you graduate? I said, well, I'm graduating early, but I'm going to be going to college in the fall. She said, come on and talk to Dr. Jenkins. Went to Dr. Jenkins, who was one of the most prominent African-American doctors in the city of Oakland, California. Went there, had a field day, worked there for approximately 8 months. But when I stopped working there, I realized something there just didn't fit. I had a hard time watching these babies being in pain and having to be hospitalized and being poked and sticked. It's like, I don't know how well I will do this. But there was one thing that I did notice. The parents, when they came in, a lot of times had been patients of Dr. Jenkins, and they needed just some emotional consolation that they were doing the right thing and things would be better. And I noticed when the parents started to calm down, the children started to calm down. And also I realized that the stress that the parents were going through a lot of times triggered some of the conditions. I heard someone saying that the doctor was going to be talking about health issues. And I believe strongly that we are body, mind, soul, and spirit. And what happens internally and around us affects what happens to us physically. So we had children that were having huge asthma attacks. We had children who had eczema. We had children who had just lots of things that I know were stress related. So when I left that job, I realized, that's okay, but there's something else to this. So the first thing that I held on to, and I want you to realize that I always give a heart formula when I speak, that the heart, the acrostic, I always break down into a formula. So the first part of this is the heart is to hold on to that feeling in which your heart had. My feeling was wanting to love and embrace and hold, and I found that that wasn't going to be able and be capable to do that for a child that was in pain, not physical pain. So I started to think, I like this feeling of being around children. So I went to school, went to UC Davis, and decided I was going to graduate or major in either pre-med or psychology. And I said, well, maybe I'll be a child therapist. I was closer than I thought. So the second part of the heart formula is to have expectations. I knew I was going to do something, and it wasn't going to be just sitting around having a bunch of babies. I was going to have some impact on babies, even though I wanted my own as well. But in doing the part of having an expectation, I also had to explore. So I explored all types of settings. I worked in the pediatric unit, I worked in the emergency unit of the medical center, I also worked in a runaway youth shelter, and I think that's when I first got the bug. Because I realized even though these were not little children, these were adolescents who still had the heart of a child, that were going through changes and didn't understand what was going on. So I continued to sort of enjoy that, went to school, got my degree in human development, and I said, there, I'm done. So what happened? I get out, and I needed to go and find a job. The first job I got was in social work with Children's Home Society. What do you think that's all about? We talk about divine guidance, and even though God gives us guidance in situations, it's all about us making choices. So everything that we do, we are making a choice about what direction we're going to go through, and we may not have the whole plan set out. You know, like the quote that I love that Stacy also mentioned, that Dr. Martin Luther King talked about, you don't have to see the whole staircase, but you can take one step, and I believe that one step needs to be related to what resonates in our hearts. See, a lot of times we don't go with what's in our hearts because someone tells us it doesn't make any sense, and it's ludicrous. And I heard someone else say earlier, it doesn't make sense. But I kept doing little things, and I love it because the next part of that is the A, which is to act. My thing, if it comes to mind, try it. And I know Joyce Meyer says that, you know, she would want to do things and people would say, oh, I'm afraid. She said, do it afraid. And she joked about people saying, her husband saying, you know, you move too fast. She said, you move too slow. And I'm kind of like Joyce. If I get the idea and I want to do something, I try to act upon it. If it doesn't go through, oh well, it's like a GPS system. It tells you what direction that you were supposed to go in, and he's not going to hate you because you took a wrong turn. He's just going to say, recalculate, recalculate, recalculate. And so the next part of that is to be able to refocus and to regroup and get back in alignment. So one of the things that happened when I started to act, I had all these wonderful experiences, just awesome experiences that I would get all excited about. And it's like, that wasn't what I expected to happen, but it did. It made my heart feel good. I'll also say that when you follow your heart, it's not always the good things or the exciting or fun things that are part of following your heart. Sometimes it's the pain, sometimes it's the hurt, sometimes it's the disappointment that also helps you to regroup and to redefine your direction when you're going to. And that still also is a part of finding your purpose and your destiny. And I know it is for mine. One of the things that happened when I started to act and do all this work in the field, I ended up at another adoption agency. And everyone said, "You mean Evelyn got away from that agency without bringing one of those kids home?" I said, "Sure did." But I had left there because I needed to redirect. I had gone so far in that particular field of social work, I knew I didn't want to stay there. The money was good, but my heart wasn't being fulfilled. So I took a job in another area that paid a lot less money, but I was enjoying what I was doing. So while I was at that job one day, I was sitting talking to the play therapist. And I was having one of those sort of like off-the-wall days. It's like, I don't know what's going on, I'm not feeling. And she looked at me and she said, "You know what you need, Evelyn?" And I said, "No, what do I need?" She said, "You need children. You need to have some children of your own." I said, "Oh, really?" And I wanted to say, "You gonna take care of them?" But I kid you not, in less than an hour, I received a phone call from a former coworker with the adoption agency. Said, "We have this little boy who we're looking for a family for, and the staff was talking, and we would think you would be the perfect match for this child." It's like, who asked you? I didn't turn in an application, I didn't ask for a home study, and then they dropped the little note that said, "And he even looks like you." I said, Now, being that I was the only African-American person on that staff, I said, "Sure, he's a little black boy, I'm a black woman, he looks like me." I went on about my business, took my vacation, came back, and there was this big manila envelope in my mail. I opened it up, looked at the picture, and this child, 9 years of age, looked almost identically like me in elementary school, except for he didn't have the braids. And it was like, wow. Long story short, that became my son, who's now 34 years old. But in following my heart, it was like, what did this feel like for me at the time? Because it didn't make sense as a single parent, as a single woman at the time, not having the things that most people would look for in having a child, but it felt right to me. I didn't know the details, and to make matters worse, the day after I returned from having my first weekend with him, I got a notice from my job telling me that you are being laid off. Whoa, what did that look like, for me? But it paid off. Because during that time that I was laid off, when my son came to live with me, the first several months we had that whole time together to make that attachment, to get settled into a system. And I remember the social worker said, "So what do you like about living with your new mom?" She said, "I hear she's going to be starting a new job." He said, "I like living with my mom, but I don't know about to get a new job." He said, "Why?" He said, "Because then she won't be home when I get home from school." They said, "Well, what do you like being home with her from school?" He said, "Watching Oprah." But there was a whole series of events that took place. And each time something came up, it's like, this is what I'm going to do. And for some reason, even though I had some fear in some of the choices that I made, I continued to move forward. And my thing is, as they say, don't just talk about it, be about it, act upon it. So, being this adoptive mom, when I brought in another child, I had these two little rambunctious boys. And I tell you, it was hard work. I'll put in a plug. This is my first memoir. It's entitled, "It's Hard Work Being the Village That Raises a Child." And the second part of the book talks about bringing the village home. And when I have the two children, I loved it with all my heart, but it was very, very difficult. One day I was sitting down watching PBS, and there's this just charming chocolate man with this big laugh came on television. And at the end of his message, towards the end, he said, my brother and I were adopted by a single woman. And we were so bad, they told her to take me back down to the welfare department. I looked at the television and said, oh my gosh, because in essence, that's what I was being told by family, especially family, said, you don't need to deal with all of this. You know, that's not even necessary. But for me, it was because one, I had a higher vision. I had expectations of what things were going to be, but that moment gave me another expectation, because at the end of that presentation, Mr. Leslie Calvin Brown said, this is Les Brown, Mamie Brown's baby boy. And I said to myself, I want to be a Mamie Brown. I want to be the one that in this child's life, when they've gone through all of the changes and people are rejecting them, to be able to say, but they were still in my heart. I said in my mind that I was going to go through regardless of what there was, because I love my babies. I couldn't even imagine someone telling me to take them somewhere. I said in my mind that I'm going to meet that man one day, and I'm going to tell him how his story inspired me to hang in here with these children and to do what needed to be done, because I see a greater vision. Fast forwarding a little bit, I kept acting on the things that I was doing. I started my nonprofit. I get a phone call one day saying, you want to go meet Les Brown? He's going to be at Marcus Books in Oakland. He had just written his book, Living Your Dreams. I got so excited. And I had my new little business cards. I wrote a little note and told him, you know, that your stories inspired me. I'm a single parent, blah, 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 blah. And it was nice. But still, he spoke, he autographed my book, we took pictures, but I didn't get to have that personal conversation. Fast forward 13 years later, I'm doing a radio program in Oakland, California called Voices for a Child's Heart, still following my vision, because this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm loving. And I'm sitting in the studio one day and I look up on the wall and I see Les Brown coming to Oakland. I almost didn't even finish my program. I was so excited because I've got to interview this man. When the program was over, I talked to the station owner, and he said, oh yeah, Will Cason is bringing him. He's one of the people that works in our studio who has a program here, and he works with Les. I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, let me go get his book. He got the book. I looked at it. It's called Visualizing Your Victory. But when I opened it up, I saw that his area code was the same as mine, which meant he wasn't too far away. I went into the studio one day and I walked by this room. I see this young man with a baseball cap on, and he says hi. I said hi, and we keep going. I go into the owner's office and I said, do you know when we're going to do this promotion? He said, oh, I don't know. And the guy with the baseball cap stuck his head in the door and said, I'm out of here, see you later. And the owner said, oh, so you're going to be the one to pick up Les and bring him in next week, huh? He said, yeah. I jumped up and started screaming and said, are you Will Cason? Are you Will Cason? My heart was excited because this was part of something that I felt in my heart that I wanted to do, to make that connection with someone who understood the importance of someone hanging in there in your life. As a result, because of me acting upon that and following my heart, that is why I'm standing here today. And I'm going to do something that's a little unconventional from what the other speakers have done. Will is here in the studio with us today, and I'm asking, Will you please come and share, because it's because of you that I followed my heart and still doing it, and you hooked me up with the baby boy. This is actually the person who did the first 24 hours of motivation when it was just Dear Phone. We would be on the phone for 24 hours a day.
Around the world.
In 2006, 2007?
2006.
And yeah, and so I just want him to say a few words, okay?
Well, thanks everyone for listening. I'm pretty sure you're getting a lot of information tonight, and all day, 24 hours of great motivational speaking authors and best-selling authors. And one of the things that Evelyn did and what she shared with you is taking massive action in your life. So I'm pretty sure you have a goal and dream, something that you want to do. You've heard speakers speak about this today. And one thing that happens in our life, I believe that life presents us with challenges and obstacles. And we don't understand why they're there, but they're only there to push us closer to where we need to go. And that's what happened in Evelyn's life. So 7 things that really happens for us to get us to victory in our life. The first one, we must find out what inspires us. So everyone that's listening in, you're looking in on via internet, what really inspires you? What brings life to you? And then the second thing that happens once we find out what inspires us is what great idea, innovation that happens based on what inspires us. And then once we have that idea, we have to have. So with that idea, what do we do with that idea? And with that idea, and we have integrity, the next thing that happens in our life is that we must make an impact. And that's what Evelyn has done with the lives of so many people. She's made an impact. And then from there, we have some type of influence that we're able to direct things and move things in people's lives. And from the influence, we're able to have increase not only in our lives, but we're able to have increase in the lives of others. So for everyone that's listening, the same story that you've heard about Evelyn, once you find out what inspires you, and then from there, where's your innovation, where's your imagination, and imagine great possibilities, things can happen in your life too. And then once you have this happen in your life, when you have this idea, just like Evelyn, have some integrity about it. And then from that integrity, make an impact in the lives of others. And from making an impact, have an influence. And that's what I did with Evelyn. I had an influence with Les Brown. And I said, Evelyn, you got to come to, we're speaking at the Marriott Hotel in San Ramon. And that was that introduction. And she took that and she's built an entire personal portfolio, books, products, and services where she's doing a great thing. And that's when the increase happened. Increase happens in her life, and the increase is happening in the lives of so many people. And so that's the same thing that's happened to me personally. I know the importance of having an idea and making an impact. And one thing that I do is I work with students, middle school and high school students, as a motivational speaker and a personal development coach, helping students reach victory in their lives. And you can go to the website, it's reachvictory.com, reachvictory.com, and that's what I instill in the lives of students. Just like Evelyn mentioned about having a vision to do something. I'm so thankful for her. I'm thankful for her passion, her purpose in her life, and what she's dedicated her God-given gifts to do to make a difference in the lives of others. And I hope for the ones that are listening in and you're viewing this broadcast, that when you close the television for the night, and when you hang up the phone for tonight, and when you log off your computer tonight, or your iPhone, or your technology device, that you will say, I found out what really inspires me. Now I'm ready to take my innovative, creative ideas, the God-given gifts and talents, and do something about it. And then once I have it, just like Evelyn, I'm bringing it back, you'll live your life with integrity. And Evelyn, I want to thank you for what you've done and what you continue to do. And your future is so bright, and I'm looking forward to much success. Thank you for having me here.
Love, 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 love. It's just amazing. And so when he's talking about visualizing your victory, he helped me to visualize. He said, you know, I see you doing these things. I see these things can and will happen for your life. So after acting, I think I know where I'm going, right? Things are moving along. I ended up taking a different job, which I was already starting private practice, but I also needed something where I would have stable income. There I go, chasing the logical thing, stable income. Every time I have gone back to a traditional workplace, I've always started to have some physical symptoms. You'd think I would get it, right? But there was a purpose, and I had to regroup. One of the places that I went back to, I was assigned as a mental health clinician into the community, and I was assigned to one of the locations was the Continental of Omega Boys and Girls Club. There, little did I know that my life would be changed again. And it wasn't just about me doing something, it's about being able to see what was going on and to be able to know that the work that I was doing had impact. Because I had gone through so much with my own sons and they weren't doing the things that I thought I had instilled in them. And, you know, as a mom, you want to be proud, you want to do things, but I still love them, but there's some things that I wanted to see young people do. And I met this young man, someone called him into the office, Mr. Pelton Stewart, who was then the director, and he said, you know what, I have a young man I want you to meet. Good kid, but he just needs somebody to talk to. And he's grown up in the foster care system, and I think he would be good for him. So, there I go. I said, okay. And the rest is history. I have have someone else in here today that I'm going to share with you. This young man is my heart. Anybody in the Platinum Speakers Network who have met him and know that it's just like, that's my son, that's my boy. And Kevin was the first recipient of our Les Brown Heart of Dreams and Tenacity Award in the year 2005. And I would say he has lived up to that title. I think we've had 5 others since then. He has lived up to the title, doing awesome things. He's written his first book. He just came back from traveling to Japan to speak at the International Foster Care Conference. And it's not even just what he's accomplished, it's just his attitude. Even today, while we're sitting here doing vision boards, he was going at it. You know, he was doing what he needed to do. He needed to be out of here an hour ago, but he stayed here to support me. He told me he needed to go, but I could tell, he looked in my eyes and knew I was feeling sad. You know, when you know somebody has your heart, and as a matter of fact, this heart, someone mentioned my necklace, he purchased this heart for me when we took a trip for his college graduation, and I cherish it, so it's appropriate that I would have this. I want to introduce to you Mr. Kevin Brown, and let him tell you a little bit about his journey and how my following his heart has helped him to follow his heart, which feeds my heart. It all comes back to you. Come here, over here, boy. He lives in New York now, so Stacy, I want you to check him out. Take good care of my boy.
Good evening. Kevin Brown here. It's been a phenomenal experience seeing all of the other speakers. I would have to say that being a child of Miss Evelyn's has been a blessing. Meeting her when I was about 17 or 18 years old, she's definitely had a positive impact on my life. She even came to my college graduation, which really meant a lot to me. But one of the most influential things that she did is I was going to move to New York after my foster mom had died here in California, in Vallejo, and I didn't have the money to move into an apartment. She actually put together, found a person for me to lease the apartment from, and put together $1,400, 2 months worth of rent together for me, and sent me on my way to New York. She said, "This is all I have, and I want you to go there. I'm positive that you're going to do something and make good light of this situation." And so I went to New York, and I stayed in that place. And you know what? For the first three months, I couldn't find work, because the goal was to be there within that 2 months, find work, and then go on, keep renting out my place, etc., etc. But that didn't happen. I ended up outside homeless, sleeping on the park benches, sleeping on the train. And of course I didn't tell her, because I didn't want her to be alarmed. But the reason why I'm saying that is because there comes a point where you have to take responsibility. And there comes a point where you have to endure because other people believe in you. And I think that that's something that's very big when you're on the goal and on your mission to become who you are and what you want to be. One thing that I call is meeting everyone halfway. And you can do that in several different ways. Oftentimes when I'm speaking to students, I talk about it in the academic arena, in the behavioral arena, and also with your extracurricular activities. But I believe that she was willing to invest in me because she knew that I would make her look good, or that I would be able to hold up her legacy and that standard that she holds herself to. And so I challenge people today, even those who are watching right now, to actually meet whoever is in your peer circle, whoever is investing in you, to meet them halfway. But also take that personal responsibility, take that task upon your back and endure and see through whatever obstacles may be in front of you. And lastly, a quote that I believe Ruben West said earlier is, "The ultimate measure of faith is preparation." And I sincerely believe that. Even speaking in goals for 2014, I have my goals written 2 months ago, because I'm ready and prepared, but I want to leave you with the 9 P's. And the 9 P's are: poor preparation promotes poor performance, and poor performance prevents progress. So let's continue to progress. Why? Because we create the life that we want by putting in the work that it takes. So this is Kevin Brown. If you want to find me, you can find me on my website, www.kevbrown1.com. And my motivational series, Live from Japan, well, not live from Japan, that I filmed in Japan, will be released this Sunday, January 5th, on youtube.com, kevbrown001.
And your book.
Oh, and I also wrote a book, 10 Ways Anyone Can Graduate from College Debt-Free, which is my testimony of how I graduated college debt-free, equipped with the 10 strategies that I used, along with $10 million worth of scholarships, and that can be purchased on www.mydebtfreecollege.com. Thank you.
Thank you. See, when you talk about heart, this is what makes my heart flow. Because it's the pride in watching what can happen. And there's so much talent in our young people. That's what I'm passionate about. Helping young people to see a higher vision of themselves. And so you heard about the holding what's in your heart and holding a vision. You heard about having high expectations. You heard about acting on it. And you heard about regrouping. So in doing all of that, the T stands for trusting the process. And sometimes everybody's talked about the difficulties that there are in following your dream and following your vision. And sometimes there are days it's like, why am I doing this? And I'll get a phone call from Kevin or some of the other young people I've worked with, and it's like, oh yeah, that's why I'm doing it. And I hold that in my heart because that is truly the desire. And I believe that as those of us who are making differences in the world, it's important that we be the village. I talk about being the village. What happens with our young people is there's not a sense of connectedness. There's not a sense that people believe in them, that they support you. Not only with our young people, and this is the other part that I came to the conclusion of recently, is that we all are children on the inside. We all have some woundedness in our lives, and those issues come up for us and keep us from acting, from having high expectations, for being able to regroup, because we get knocked down and we stay there and we go back to where we were as a child with those wounded hearts. So not only do I do work about doing something special for a child's heart, I said, do something for your own heart. And believe in yourself. And find those people who will nurture you, who care about you. Two of my favorite quotes are by Maya Angelou. And she says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's the way I feel. People talk about how disruptive our young people are. I personally haven't had problems with young people disrespecting me because I give them the respect back. And before I even try to speak something into their lives, and this goes for anyone, I ask for permission, can I speak into your life? Because, as I often say, I could say something, they can say, well, who asked you? And the reality is, it's true. Have you ever been in a place where sometimes somebody's telling you something and you say, I don't want to hear that. I don't need to hear that. So it's finding out what are the needs of people's hearts. So when we're dealing with our young people, it's important that we establish a relationship, establish a trust to let them know that we really care about you. And the other thing, we get upset sometimes because people do not, and our young people do not follow through what we ask or suggest that they do. And sometimes the other quote by Dr. Maya Angelou says, people may not remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. And what is that? That's in their heart. And just like my son said, it made his heart feel warm. So as I'm going through all of these challenges, I'm having to trust the process. And sometimes to trust the process, you have to look back and see where you've come from. So we're talking about developing that journey and that path. And when you get to a certain point, you say, wow, this is what I've been doing all this time? This must be what I'm here for, because it feels right. It feels right. And I just want to say something, there is a scripture that says the heart is deceitful. And people always, argue about not following your heart, but use your brain. But I want to say that when we follow our hearts, even when the heart is hurt, it doesn't mean that we turn bitter and do the things that we think ought to be done. Using that as a guide, just like pain is a signal that something is not going right in the body. Okay, so we try to kill the pain, but not go to the source of what it's all about. So when we're having disrest and heaviness in our hearts, and things don't seem to be going right, it's important, again, I'll go back to the regrouping, to go back and see what is really going on. And sometimes the answer to that is you're doing something about that situation. I love the statement that it says, don't fight against something, but promote what you're going towards. So instead of saying, I'm anti-bullying, I'm anti-war, what are you for? And so I don't get into a lot of arguments with people about what our young people are not doing. I like to talk about what they are doing. And so in finding my purpose, I realized because I received so much joy in watching our young people prosper and realize their gifts and to live, I decided, you know what, we need to generate more of this in the village. And so my goal is developing the village with heart. And I believe that we all have different gifts, we all have different skills, and we all have different levels of tolerances as well. But it's important to know where you can and what it is that you can do, and be about that. Do that. I'm so tired of people criticizing our young people. So one of the things I would like for you to do, I have one page on Facebook called "Is Hard Work Being the Village That Raises a Child?" It's titled after my book, but I'm looking for people who are concerned about our youth and really want to develop a manner to make a difference in their lives. So trust the process and do what it is to do something special for a child's heart as well as your own. Follow your heart, and you now can come to the point of fulfilling your purpose and destiny. You can find me at www.talktoms.E.com. You can find Miss Evelyn, the Heart Lady, Talk to Me and Let Me Speak on Facebook. Thank you. God bless. Follow your heart. We're here in Northern California, Vallejo.